Beside me when I was old, I know that I will find it. I got my hi. Um, you're here, which is fantastic. Hey guys, about last week, I'm sorry. I had so much going on, and I had to build some stuff and do some prints to generate content. Sometimes you just got to take a week off, and I did, and I really appreciate you guys letting me do that. So thank you very much. But you're here now, and I've still got some work to do. I'm going to be working on my Delta printer here. Why don't we talk for a second about something that I've noticed that might spell the doom of 3D printing. I am, of course, talking about the evil of web apps. All right, fair enough. Web apps aren't going to be the end of 3D printing in any way, but they are kind of very common nowadays, especially in the world of 3D printing. But just any new software nowadays are being developed as web apps or web-enabled apps. And I will say that in this conversation, I'm not targeting any specific paradigm except anything that takes control away from the users. Of course, we as users aren't entirely blameless either. We're needy and demanding and difficult to work with. And so at least part of the blame of this conversation lies with us. Recently, this came to my attention when the project that I was doing in the last video, where I was building 3D printers for kids with limited mobility, I didn't want to use Octoprint for it. Not that I had anything against Octoprint, but I was going to use my Formide here. And Formide has a web app that talks to this device, and it does the slicing in the cloud, and then it beams it down to the device, and the device streams it to the printer. The problem is, just before I was to deliver this to the people who were getting it, just before I was going to give this to them, Formide disappeared. And to this day, at this time, Formide is still under maintenance. Which, what does that mean? It means that this device doesn't work and it doesn't do anything. Formide has a better user interface than Octoprint. Formide comes out of the box ready to use as is, and Formide just works. Well, did work. See, this is the problem. A lot of the software for 3D printing is fairly rough, and so anybody who's making new software for 3D printing, well, it's new software, and a lot of new software is coming in as a web app. The benefit of software as a service, web apps, web development for business is that the development of these apps is very rapid. The tools for making them are extremely mature. Before I became the 3D printing professor, I was doing software development for a living. I've done software development for 10 years, but I'm kind of the old regime. I'm kind of old school. The people who develop these apps, they don't care about low-level software or transferring information and how packets are moved from place to place. They just want to make a pretty user interface, and that's good. They're making the software that we really need in 3D printing these days. We need software that's easier to use and more user-friendly, and that's good. The other thing is, when I was developing web apps, or not web apps, but when I was developing software, and I got a support call, the first question I would ask people was always the same. What version are you on? Because if they hadn't updated to the latest version, chances are the problem didn't exist in the version that I was developing for, and so it would waste my time trying to hunt down these problems. And with web-enabled apps, you don't have to worry about that. Everybody gets updated, and everybody's on the latest version. So that's a plus side, at least from the development side. There's also the question of accessibility. In the past, that wasn't a big deal, and back when Java was first coming out, we were, they were trying to sell us on this. Oh, it's cross-compatible and it'll work on every system. And we went, who cares? Everybody has Windows. But nowadays, especially with the boom of mobile devices, it's actually a good argument to say that your software will run on any device because that device might be in somebody's pocket. Also, it means that your software is available everywhere. Not just your software, but your users' data. Web apps are great for schools, though. I can't even argue that they're not, because they level the playing field. Every student gets a computer that the school gives to them and that the school holds onto and maintains, but their data follows them wherever they go. This is the dream of Sun Microsystems in the 90s. Chromebooks made it happen. So they're very good, and especially in the school environment, they're very good. I'm going to see if I can get some more of this. Nope. Yes. Where are my clippers? There's also the question of resilience. Having your users' data on the cloud means that it's being backed up and maintained by professional users, which means that it's less likely to disappear with redundant backups. Also, cloud computing and cloud software has built-in DRM, and if you're worried that your software is going to be stolen, that somebody's going to do something with it that you don't approve of, then that's a very attractive thing. Now, I have an opinion about DRM that we don't need it, not ever. However, the people who are paying for the software to be made have a different opinion about it, and I respect that. That's fine. However, this all doesn't come without a cost. There's definitely a reason why it's maybe not the best idea in the world. First of all, there's the question of performance. Your app can only get to people as fast as their internet. Not everybody lives in the big city and can have high-speed, high-quality internet. Where I am, I would love to be on Twitch more often and doing streaming and stuff while I was working on my computers or my printers, but I just don't have good enough internet for that. The other thing is, users don't feel like they're in control anymore. Just yesterday, I had 3D Builder, an app that came with Windows 10 that I absolutely love, got updated for me automatically, and the whole user interface changed. And I don't know what else changed, but immediately I looked at it and I said, well, I didn't ask for that. Why are you doing me this favor of updating it without asking me or telling me what's coming? I had no control over that, and I didn't like that feeling. But, I also didn't pay for that software, and Microsoft decided that it was in my best interest to update it. So I guess I don't have control over that. Isn't it wonderful that we live in a day and age where you don't have to make those choices anymore? Yeah. The other thing is, there really is no such thing as a free lunch. Apps on the web have to be hosted somewhere. Somebody's paying for that web hosting. Now, this is true whether you're downloading it or whether it's a web-enabled app. But if it's a web-enabled app, every time somebody wants to use it, every time they fire it up, there's a cost involved. Whereas if it's a download that they only get to download once and then use forever, you only have to pay for that initial download. We've already had web apps that we use all the time for 3D printing threatened to disappear because there was nobody paying the bills, but the bills were coming in and they had to be paid by somebody. We saw this happen with Tinkercad. Tinkercad's great software. Everybody loved using it, but nobody was paying for it. And when the web hosting bill came due, they said, we can't do this anymore. And they were about to shut it down. And I guess, thank goodness, Autodesk came in and decided to take over for us. But then at the same time, now it's in control of Autodesk. And while they are doing great things for 3D printing and the community, who knows what they'll do tomorrow? Now, I know more than the few people who use Fusion 360 who, when we talk about this, they say, well, if they decide to charge for it tomorrow, I'll pay it because I'm hooked on this. It's a great piece of software and I love using it. And I guess that's a good business strategy. Get people hooked on it. If you can play for that long game, yeah, good on you, Autodesk, for doing that. But it does, again, take the user out of control on this situation. Like in the case of Formide, if they go south, you're gone. You don't have a choice. They're out of here. You are tied to their success. Whereas, taking Blender again as an example, if they decide tomorrow that they're done building it, then I still got the last version of Blender installed on my machine. I can keep the installer, and chances are somebody will host it somewhere. It's never going to go away. It will always be with us. Whereas Formide, 10 years from now, nobody's going to know what that is because they went out of business and there's no copy of it floating around anywhere. Now, I hate to just complain. I hate to just, oh gosh, well, this sucks and everything. I usually like to offer solutions, but I don't really know what the solution is. It would be nice if people would stop developing web apps, but that's not going to happen, and I don't want it to happen. There's a lot of good reasons for web apps to be out there, and like I said, there's some plus sides to using web apps, or to developing web apps. They, again, make very usable software, but to me they feel like short-term gains and long-term losses. It would be nice if the developers who are making these softwares would also make, in addition, a native version that runs locally and that we could download. I realize that this is non-trivial. Making an app that both runs on the web and that you can then download and run without downloading any additional data online is not simple. Native compiled apps are not an easy thing. Native compiled with web developed apps are not an easy thing to do. And the fact that nobody is doing it means that these people, if they want to do it, they're going to be going to uncharted territory to do it. And obviously that's going to make that difficult. It would also be nice if when these projects are going to be shut down, when they're reaching the end of their life cycle, if the people who are making them and doing them would open source them, put the source for them online and let the community have them and do with them as they please, which would mean that they don't have to develop it and finish it and polish it. They could just put it out there and hope that the community does it. The community might, they might not, but the point is, it's not going to die, it's not going to disappear, it's not going to be gone here today and gone tomorrow. Now, for our side, if there is a piece of software that you like, and especially if it has a paid option, and you're not doing that, just think about that for a second. I mean, I recognize that not everybody is in an economic position to pay for software, but then again, if you were able to pay for a 3D printer, just saying. I don't know, what do you think? Are web apps a good thing? They're certainly the future whether we want them or not, but does that mean that we should be happy about that? Or should we insist that software developers make an effort to think about us in the long term as their users? Tell me what you think in the comments. I'm very curious to hear your thoughts on this. And what web-enabled apps even do you use on a daily basis that you would not be okay with if it disappeared tomorrow? Or is that why you stay away from these web-enabled apps, and what do you use instead? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments. I want to thank you very much for watching. As always, safety first. I'll see you next time. Do you want to know more about 3D printing but don't know where to start? Or did you buy a 3D printer but you need some help getting it going? Don't panic. The Beginner's Guide to the 3D Printing Galaxy is here, now, for you. Buy it on Amazon.